Hi, Holly Stokes of the Brain Trainer here, and I'm interviewing today Andrew Green, who has been a professional hypnotherapist since 2012. He has also worked with the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy, and accumulated 10,000 hours in office with clients. He is also featured as one of the top hypnotherapists on the world's largest app, BetterSleep. So we're excited to kind of chat about your background and what was your first experience with hypnosis?
Oh, that's such a great question, and thank you for having me on, Holly. Holly and we are just next door neighbors as far as offices go. So for those who are watching and wondering, she's literally just 15 feet away from me. So my very first experience with hypnosis was when I was about 12 years old. My parents took my very large family. I have 8 siblings. Took
Wow.
all of us to a stage show, and I think my parents were just as curious as all of us kids were. And I remember sitting in the audience thinking, what in the world is this? I remember being super fascinated, super curious, watching all of these bizarre things, people on
Right.
stage trying to find their belly button, people acting like chickens and clucking. And I recall as I left, I took a brochure with me, and the hypnotist was talking about how hypnosis could help people quit smoking and boost confidence and lose weight. And I remember that was just the beginning for me. Like a little spark was planted in my mind and a deep curiosity. And I ran home and I practiced hypnotism on my siblings. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I was so fascinated. And so that was my very first experience, was just that stage show as a 12-year-old boy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And it is so fascinating. It's just so stage shows, we see all of these crazy antics uh and it's almost unexplainable, right? We don't really have like a way to explain that. So what did your parents think about the show?
To be honest, and I love that question. They are very, very conservative, religious at the time, and they were kind of kind of discouraging my interest in it a little bit.
Like, don't do that, don't do
Yeah,
that.
don't do that. Like that's mind control. We're not
Oh,
so sure
yeah,
how we feel about this. So
right.
their take was we're very uncertain. And I was just like, I'm curious and I'm gonna explore this.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
So what was your path from there? So 12 years old, saw this stage show, this curiosity. Hypnosis it's not like a mainstream career path. A lot of people don't, say, "Oh, I'm going to be a hypnotist." So what was kind of your path to this professionally?
hmm So my path, right around the age of 18, I became a real estate agent. I wanted to take a conventional path. I wanted to earn as much money as possible. And I figured real estate would be my golden ticket.
Yeah.
True enough, I attempted to be a real estate agent and a real estate investor for a good 5 years.
Wow.
It was kind of like I kept bumping my head up against a wall.
Mm.
It's very challenging for me. I really struggled. It felt very much out of alignment. Um,
Mm.
I just didn't enjoy it. And I remember one day I was at a resort down in Arizona. I was married at the time, and we were just floating on this lazy river. And I was kind of in this place of surrender. And I
Mhm.
consider myself a spiritual person. And so I just remembered praying, and I was like, Dear God, why am I here? What am I doing on this planet? Um, and what I was really searching for was meaning and purpose. And that's not something I was finding in real estate. And I
Yeah.
remember just being in this like very meditative state. I'm floating on this river. It was nighttime. It's Arizona, so it was nice and warm. And I
Wow.
remember this immense sensation of peace just washed over me. And it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It's
Mm.
just profound peacefulness from the crown of my head down to the tips of my toes. And I remember saying, if it's not real estate, what am I here to do? How am I here to serve? And I
Mm,
remember just the strongest impression. It wasn't necessarily an audible word, but it was like an intuitive knowing,
yeah.
and it was hypnosis. And I remember at the time thinking, you know, yes, I had my interest in hypnosis from the age of 12, but I had mostly let it go. I really didn't explore it. But it was just this kind of tingly vibration all over my body, and it was an inarguable sensation. And I could have pushed it away, but it feels like I would have been doing myself the greatest disservice to not honor what I was feeling in that moment. And I remember feeling lit up, and
Mm,
I started researching, and I found a really great school out in Florida, and it was all about heart-centered healing, and I'm all about that.
wow.
And and all the synchronicities kind of came into play. My wife at the time, she was offered a job as a Disney princess in Florida, right near the school, and
Wow.
beautiful synchronicities all lined up. And I went to school there and just had a fantastic time learning about hypnosis and how to help other people heal.
Wow. Yeah. So, and so since 2012, you've been doing this for a while now. Like
Mhm.
you've clocked your 10,000 hours working with clients. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of different things in your practice. Is
Yes.
there an area where you feel like you've specialized or even just maybe seen clients for a certain topic more than others? A lot of hypnotists tend to find that they have certain types of things that gravitate toward them.
Yes. I stumbled into, well, I can't say stumbled. In hypnotherapy school, we were learning a lot about regression, and very much it was focused on forgiving the
Mm,
past, forgiving yourself, forgiving the person who caused you harm. And I experienced such profound shifts while I was at hypnotherapy school. I was able to forgive a brother who had been very kind of abusive towards me throughout my entire childhood. And in
mm,
one session, I forgave him, and I
mm.
came into a place of just like warmth and love and understanding. And I was so blown away by this regression protocol that I would say that's my specialty now. I'm all
Wow.
about helping people heal those interpersonal dynamics that they've got their father in their head, or they've got their mom in their head, and they're arguing with that voice constantly, and
Right.
it's creating so much pain and suffering, and it's really unnecessary. We have the capacity to just let go of our upsets and our grievances, and a lot of people think it's got to be complex and it's going to take a lot of work. And a message to my clients is uh, it's their willingness to let it go that
Yeah.
that facilitates their healing. and
Right.
and I'm sure, as you know, you'll have clients come in who are just like eager to heal. They want to let go. They don't quite know how. And
Right.
then we just open the door for them and invite them to walk through. And
Mm.
it's on them whether they choose to do that or not.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And forgiveness is such an integral part of healing. In fact, something isn't really healed unless you can forgive it. And part of this, I think, has to do like with our unconscious mind. So our conscious self, like, I can forgive this, I'm gonna be a good, you know, Christian, religious person, whatever, I can forgive this. And we say that at the conscious level, but if we feel like we see their picture and we feel triggered, or we think
Mhm.
about that person and the old event comes up, then we
Mhm.
know, like, okay, there's still some healing that
Yeah,
needs to happen. So, um, what
it's
would you tell clients about, I don't know, about how to maybe start letting go? Or sometimes it's even a process, like,
mm,
being open to the idea of letting this go, or I'm being
yeah,
open. Like, so any advice that you would give people?
absolutely. I think there's simplicity in being willing to first honor and acknowledge what you're feeling inside. So like you just mentioned, if there is that person in your life, if you see their face and you're triggered, what's that trigger communicating to you? Are you
Yeah.
angry? Are you hurt? Do you feel betrayed? So start with the feeling. It has less to do with the person than we think it does. So start with
Mm.
the feeling, feel that willingness to feel the betrayal, the hurt, the anger. Go deep into that feeling. Allow it to move through you, and then ask yourself, do I need to continue to feel this? Do I need to like hold on to this feeling?
Mm.
And you'll likely find, maybe in the beginning you might get a yes, I need to hold on to it. Maybe you'll get a no. And you can ask yourself, if I'm ready to let go of this, when would I be willing to let this go? And the answer might be now. And if you're to continue that with that process of like actually acknowledging your feelings, sitting with them, asking if you're willing to let them go, you'll immediately begin to feel a
Mm.
sense of relief just by acknowledging. And I think that's a lot of people's resistance in coming into office, is they're like, he's going to make me feel, or
Right.
I'm not ready to feel that. And so they'll come in, as you know, and they'll dance around the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
And it's,
Right.
they may choose to focus on something that's less important. But I'd encourage the listeners right now to kind of ask themselves, what is it that's been sitting on my lap?
Mm.
What's the serious upset, the grievance that just continues to show up? And am I willing to look at that? Whether it's what I described, feeling the feelings, asking if I can let them go, or working with a skilled facilitator such as yourself or myself,
Yeah.
that can guide them through that process.
Yeah. And I think there's such wisdom in that, because the negative feelings are uncomfortable. They don't feel good. So we find a lot of ways to distract ourselves from it, rather than feeling it or paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where we like get up and eat ice cream or run to the movies, or, we find lots of ways to be busy and distract ourselves. And I think part of that is good because then we can feel better. But if we're not actually, like you said, really paying attention to that emotion, we're not actually listening to ourselves,
Right.
right?
And one of the greatest acts of self-love is to actually
Mm.
just slow down, to sit and to feel and honor and acknowledge what's really going on inside of you, instead of finding that temptation to either suppress and then just express. So we suppress our emotions, and then they come out one way or another.
Right.
But just being willing to love ourselves enough to recognize that we are capable of feeling what we need to feel, and it's usually not as bad as we play it out to be.
And that can be scary to sit with
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah.
Especially people who've gone through some bigger stuff. But a lot of us relate to just even like little stuff that comes up. Oh, that person, uh, well, I used to have a road rage problem. Like,
Oh, did you now? Oh, so that's
it's
why you
much,
come in.
much better now. But like people would cut me off and I would fly into, oh, they're so they're a horrible person. When the truth is, they're probably just stressed and trying to, get to work on time or whatever it is.
Right.
Um, so, so sometimes I think, like you said, it's not necessarily, I mean, it can certainly be the big stuff, but it's also kind of the little stuff. What are those little things that take us
Mhm.
out of feeling okay or feeling
Right.
present?
Yes, little upsets can actually be very big upsets, and
Yeah.
they disturb the mind, regardless of whether they're little or big, and to not acknowledge them is, we're all tempted to do it, and I can certainly
Yeah.
relate. But I think ultimately we just want to feel good, and if
Yeah.
there's something in your life that's preventing you from feeling that way, maybe it's time to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. And you said something that just sparked that thought, the little upsets, we think that maybe they're not as important, but they're often reflecting some deeper stuff that we haven't let go of, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, even just
Mhm.
paying attention. Okay, where are you getting triggered or off track? And is this a small
Mhm.
thing, or is there something bigger, like you said, that thing on your lap that you haven't acknowledged?
Yes. That's, and I'll have clients who come in and they're like, I don't know what I need to work on. And they usually do. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
that thing that just keeps showing up, that
Mm,
keeps triggering you, keep bothering you? And I'll often ask them the question, and you probably ask a very similar question, is like, have you suffered enough with this?
mm,
And every time, like hands down, the answer is always yes.
yeah.
They're often not asking themselves that question. Am I truly, or have I truly suffered enough? And when am I willing to end the suffering?
Mm,
And when I ask those two questions, it's virtually always the answer, yes, I'm ready to heal, and the time is now.
yeah. Yeah. And it kind of makes me think about, kind of that forgiveness. It's the things that we hang on to, they keep creating that negative emotion in our life, whether it's like the small things that are reflecting the big thing, or when we think about the big thing, but then it's like we're beating ourselves up with that memory, where
Mhm.
that's finding ways to let it go. We can be more clear with ourselves and more clear in the world around us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. All for it.
Which also, as you're talking about this, it kind of touches on, I would say, well, another aspect of this is self-forgiveness. Maybe you brought something up around that as well. Like, I think all of the letting go of the hurts also has a deep component of self-forgiveness.
Right. Absolutely. And it's, um, if we to go really deep and really look at exploring how the mind works, we'd look at that essential need to forgive oneself for the
Mm,
perceptions and projections that we
mm,
place onto other people. I just even yesterday, I realized that I'd been disturbed and really quite upset for a while, and it wasn't so much that someone had seriously done me wrong, it was my perception of them seriously doing me wrong, and the all the angst and upset and
yeah.
just like the almost the self-righteousness
Mm,
involved with like, you have hurt me. And when I went into myself and spent a little time in meditation, I realized there's a lot of innocence in this person,
mm.
and I just wasn't willing to see it. And so that required me to turn within and forgive myself for actually causing myself so much pain with
Mm.
my misperception that was projected outward.
I love that you brought that up, because those um, ideas that we have, it's like the attribution.
Mhm.
Often, if it's a mistake that we make, we see ourselves, oh, I'm still a good person. I just, like cutting people off in traffic. Oh, I'm still a good person. I just was in a hurry and maybe cut it a little too close. But so we
Mhm.
attribute like positive intentions to ourselves, but then we attribute the negative ones to somebody else. Oh, that person cut me off. They're just so rude. How could they do that? They're endangering people, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
but then also what you said with that, it's really our perception or our missed perception.
We
That,
don't see the whole picture. We're
yeah,
seeing this teeny tiny aspect of this person, this 1 minute on the road, and we don't know their story. We don't know what they've been through. If we were living their life, maybe we'd be driving the exact same way. And
right.
to
Right.
pull back the judgments. A dear friend of mine just recently reminded me, like, Andrew, you need to eliminate the idea of like there are devils and angels.
Right.
We cast people in one light, and that creates a
Mm,
lot of our suffering. So there
right.
are no devils or angels. Like, let people be people. They're not
Mhm.
necessarily perfect. You're not perfect.
Mm,
But by throwing someone into that container of this is a devil and this is an
Good,
angel.
good,
It's
bad, that very
good, bad.
definitive.
That
Yeah.
very polarized kind of thinking
Yeah.
is actually damaging to ourselves and our own psyches.
Yeah. Well, and if you could touch on that a little bit more, like damaging to it, because I think a lot of us have that habit, especially we come from rigid, or religious backgrounds where we do have this like black and white, good person, bad person, right, wrong. And
Mhm.
we get very caught up in some of these judgments.
Yes, it's tempting. It's very tempting.
Right.
Um, I will give you a quick example. I had a client come in a couple months ago, and sweet lady, but she had been suffering from this chronic sleeplessness. She's like, Andrew,
Mm,
I can only sleep 2 months or 2 hours per night, maybe three. This has been going on for weeks. And we started to explore her emotions, and sure enough, she had been holding on to a whole lot of resentment, almost to the extent of hate
yeah.
towards her own sister.
Mm,
And I said, I believe you'll probably sleep a lot better if you can let that go. And she had this like fierce grip on it. She's like, no, 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 Andrew, this is protecting me. You don't understand how bad my sister is.
mm,
And so she had this perceived threat. And I said, how often do you see her? And she's like, oh, I probably won't see her for another 6 months or maybe a year at like a family party. And so I asked her, you're willing to sit with this anger and this hurt and almost hate for 6 months or a year, and you'll see her for an hour or two, and then you'll leave the experience, and then yeah, and maybe you'll go back to that sleeplessness, and it's this intense polarizing. She was not willing to see her sister as anything but a devil,
mm,
and it took some work and some time, but we were able to soften her perception and realize that this imminent threat that her brain had been holding on to wasn't as imminent as she was making it out to be. And there was also a high level of like catastrophizing. I'm going to see my sister in 6 months and she's going to be awful to me. And I'm
right.
like, can you know that for certain? And her answer was no, I don't know that for certain. And maybe the interaction will be okay, and maybe I'll be just fine at the end of it. So that letting go of that polarized thinking and kind of softening
Right.
made all the difference for her, and she started sleeping dramatically better right away.
Right. And what I heard you kind of explain in that letting go of the polarized thinking,
Mhm.
there's kind of an element of, and you may have, I think you kind of said this or touched on this earlier, like we're all human. We all have
Right.
good days and bad days.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
seeing ourselves, we wouldn't want people to see us in a bad day and then think that that's just who we are. Right.
Absolutely. Hmm.
So I think I just recently had a conversation with a family member, and we were talking about, had some kind of argument, and who was right, who was wrong. And it's like that misperception, what we're imagining, why it's like why we're imagining the other person is doing this to us because they're bad, because they're wrong. It
Hmm.
actually creates more of the conflict.
It sure does. And
Right? It's
um,
almost like it hyper focuses our brain to look for it. Oh no,
yes,
she's going to treat me badly. I better focus and see all the places she's going to treat me badly rather than
I,
letting yourself just have a new experience.
absolutely. And there's even studies now suggesting that some people are very immune to that kind of negative conflict in their lives. There's even specifically when it comes to narcissism, there are some
Mm.
people who are almost immune to narcissists. And perhaps maybe their minds are less polarizing. Maybe that has something to do
Oh,
with it.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but something to consider for sure is like, do we want to live in a world where we are almost attracting these experiences and catastrophizing and heightening our perception of this person could
Mm.
really, really harm me? And I'm often encouraging my clients to challenge that. Like, is this person as dangerous? Are they really as harmful as you're making them out to be?
Or do they really have these negative intentions that, like you said, we're projecting onto them?
Right. Are they truly malicious? And if they are, you create those boundaries and do what you need to do. But I would say 9 out of 10 times are not as malicious, harmful, or threatening as
Yeah.
we're making it out to be. And when we do that to ourselves, we're also kind of triggering our nervous system. We're
Yeah.
activating. It's like, fear response, danger, danger, danger.
Yeah.
But we create a whole lot of unsafety for ourselves
Right.
with those perceptions.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, did you have any kind of reference about that study about some people are almost immune to that?
You know,
Like,
it's been mentioned by, I believe it's Dr. Ramona on YouTube. She's a narcissism specialist and a
mhm.
psychologist. And she didn't present conclusive findings, but I
Okay.
know this is something that's being explored right now. So I wish
Yeah.
I could provide you more information
But that
on.
sounds fascinating. Like, what is the
Yeah,
mindset that
what is
we
the
have
mindset?
that either causes us to get caught up in it, or the
Mhm.
mindset where we can let it go?
Yes,
So,
something to investigate further, especially
yeah,
for those people who might find that they're caught up in those kind of relationships
right.
or seem to almost like attract that kind of person.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so we've kind of touched on a lot here, and especially the healing work we really get into forgiveness and forgiving ourselves. Any advice you would give to people about how to start the process of forgiving yourself?
Um, yeah, I think if we're capable of cultivating any level of compassion
Hmm.
for for another, then I think we can just redirect that compassion to ourselves.
Hmm.
And that might be almost like an NLP kind of approach of let's close our eyes, like let's find a lot of compassion towards someone you love. Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now, can you apply that compassion to your 2-year-old self? And the answer might be yes, that's easy. And your 10-year-old self. And how about your 15-year-old self? And can you just move that compassion right up to that 25-year-old who was just doing the best she could with what she had at the time?
Yeah.
So cultivating compassion for oneself, choosing to really understand yourself, where you were coming from, um, it can be also very helpful in the process of self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And then also accepting. So coming into a place of acceptance, can I accept that I'm human? Can I accept that I'm fallible? Can I accept that what has happened? And if I were to continue to hold on to it, I'm just going to suffer. So there's a little formula I use in my office to help people forgive themselves, and it incorporates a lot of those things I just mentioned:
Wow.
understanding, compassion,
Yeah.
acceptance, and then when you move through that formula, it's easy to find.
Yeah. As we were talking about like how we're attributing to other people, we talked about, maybe this person isn't doing this maliciously, but they're human, right?
Mhm.
And we're human too. Like allowing
Mhm.
that same, oh, I can have a bad day and I'm still a good person. Or I can have a bad day and it doesn't show that my whole person is
Yeah,
grumpy or stressed or whatever.
yeah. And that's the difference between shame and guilt. And guilt is, I made a big mistake there and I acknowledge it and I'm going to try to do better next time. But shame is that I did something wrong, therefore I am wrong. It's
Hmm.
that very core intrinsic, this means this about me. And
Hmm.
I'm working with clients or even just my kiddos. It's like, okay, that was a bad behavior. That was probably the wrong choice, but you're not bad. And can you forgive that behavior? Maybe one of my kids yelled at me or hit their sibling and get them to that place where they can realize, oh, okay, I'm
Hmm.
human. I made a mistake. Yes, I can forgive myself. And this doesn't mean that I'm a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of when I worked with the backpacking programs with at-risk teens, we really talked about communication, that the person is not the behavior. The person
Right.
does the bad behavior, but they're still valuable. They're still human. They're
Yeah.
still, and so I think like we talked about, conflicts, the more that we can bring that awareness to our communication and our conflicts, the person is not the problem, like the behavior is the problem, right?
Right.
It's not that
Absolutely.
this is a bad person and
Yeah,
you're a good person, because
absolutely.
often we have that temptation.
Yes, 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 yes. One thing, as my practice has evolved, also that I found to be really beautiful, especially for my clients who are a little spiritually minded, and they believe that their true nature isn't their negative behaviors. That at their core, they intrinsically believe there's goodness and there's love and there's all these beautiful qualities. In helping them to uncover that self-love, I often encourage them to not, like, obviously not seek it outside of themselves, but almost relax into it as if it's already been there,
Mm,
and as if
I love that.
they've always loved themselves.
Mm,
It's like an ever-present experience that we often deny ourselves because of our stories, because of our shame and our guilt and whatever it is we're carrying. And you should see my clients' reactions. They're often quite surprised. I'm like, oh, you've always loved yourself. And when they're in hypnosis and they're in that relaxed state, there's often a shift, and it's like, oh, I have to just let go into that feeling that already
mm,
exists. It's always been there. So when you talk
I
about
love that.
self-forgiveness, um, a part of it is just that willingness to let go of the unforgiveness or the
Mm,
resistance to
oh,
that love, and to find the healing that's just waiting for them.
yeah. I love that reframe, because we kind of talk about this I hear it in our mainstream culture. Do you love yourself enough? And we kind of have
Yeah.
this measure, like, what is enough? I don't know. And a lot of us have been taught not to love ourselves. Think
Right.
about so and so, think about so and so. Don't think about yourself, because that was selfish. But I love this reframe that you brought up, is like, you've always loved yourself.
Mm-hmm. And
Just
it's,
relax into that inner being, that inner
yeah,
part of you.
yes, and it's not outside of you. Um,
Mm,
a lot of people, when they think self-love, it's okay, now I'm going to go give myself or get myself a massage.
yeah.
I'm going to treat myself to a really nice meal. And those things are absolutely wonderful. But the idea that it's something
Mm,
you must do or something you must gain, or um, instead of beginning with the mindset of it's already here, can I just soften? Can I relax? Can I actually experience that love in this present moment, right here, right now? And
mm,
it's not predicated on me doing anything, accomplishing anything, gaining anyone else's love or approval.
yeah. Allow yourself to notice it, that you always have had that love for yourself.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. Yeah,
Well, thank you. Thank you for appreciating it. And yeah, such great questions.
that's
You,
powerful. So, is there an experience or a tool, something for people to kind of interact with this a little deeper, a little more experientially?
yeah. So on my YouTube channel, there's a handful of videos that drop people into that state. Uh,
Hmm.
I'd recommend that. I've been wanting to release another video on YouTube that's just going to be titled Dissolve into Love. It's just
Mm.
that willingness to surrender and
Wow.
become one with the love that is. Um, I would say, as far as like a tool that they could use right now, um, I would say don't make it complicated. See
Mm.
if you can relax. See if you can take some slow, deep breaths and consider the possibility that that healing and love is just waiting for you, and it's here right now. So nothing complicated. And I think as practitioners, we're always like, okay, what's the process? What's the protocol? What modality are we going to use? And the intellectual mind would love to convince us that and as much as I love the protocols and processes, but the intellectual mind would always love to convince us that it's going to take a lot of work or effort, or we've got to do the process perfectly right. And those, to me, at times, like when we think in those terms, it can prevent us from the simplicity of healing that just comes through being and feeling and acknowledging the present moment.
Wow. Yeah. So I think you had like a little demonstration for us to see how hypnotizable you are.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this.
Okay. So this is called the Spiegel eye roll test. And it's a very simple way to determine your level of hypnotizability. So it just requires that you're in a safe space. So for the listeners out there, just make sure you're somewhere safe and comfortable. Obviously, not driving, not operating the lawnmower. And you'll just have a seat, and I'll just have you, Holly, look up towards the ceiling. And this applies to the listeners as well. Just look up towards the ceiling, pick a single spot to stare at. It does not matter what you've chosen to stare at. Just stare, stare, stare. Take in a slow, deep breath. And as you stare, I want you to very slowly begin to lower your eyelids. Just as slowly as you possibly can. Closing, 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 closing. Close those eyes. Turn within and send a calming wave of relaxation all the way down to your feet and toes. And right now, Holly, you're just in a very light state of hypnosis. You can hear my voice. You can feel the surface that supports you. You can feel the fabric of your clothes upon your skin. You're very aware that you're aware. You can also hear my voice and any other sounds in the outside world. And with those eyelids closed, I want you to imagine or pretend that you're in a very peaceful, beautiful environment, maybe somewhere in nature. So just pick a single place. It doesn't matter what you choose. A single place, and be there now. Now in this place, imagine you feel the feelings of being really absorbed in this environment. Is there a warm breeze that rushes across your face and your hair? Is the sun shining, casting a warm golden glow over the crown of your head, your cheeks, your neck, and down the rest of your body? What does this environment smell like? Is it a pine forest? Are you on the beach and the air is salty? Imagine that you're just simply activating your various senses. Imagine looking around. Some of you are going to be very visual, and you might actually see the beach or the sky or the forest or the meadow. And some of you not so much. It might just be dark. And there will be those of you who can almost hear the sound of the waves crashing upon the shore. or the birds chirping in the forest. And there are those that can almost feel into the environment. You might feel a little tingly in your hands or your feet. When a person is in hypnosis, they might feel tingly, they may feel floaty, they may feel rather heavy. And it's not uncommon to feel blood traveling up through the neck, into the face, creating what is known as the hypnotic mask, which is really just kind of a flushing of the skin. So take note. Is there that flushing, tingliness, heaviness, or anything else that feels a little different than normal? The truth is, hypnosis is a very natural state of mind. You go into it every single day. It's that feeling you feel when you're waking up, but you're not fully awake. It's the feeling you feel when you're drifting off to sleep at night. You're not quite asleep and you're no longer awake. It's that in-between state. And it feels very much like a daydream. And now I want you to bring your attention to your eyelids and make those eyelids very, very heavy. Make those eyelids so heavy and so relaxed that any effort to open those eyelids will just cause them to seal down even more. Any effort to open your eyelids will cause them to lock down even tighter. Now I want you to simply pretend to try to open your eyelids, and you will find that they just do not want to work. Any effort to open your eyelids will cause them to seal down even tighter. The more you try to open them, the more heavy they become. When you are convinced that your eyelids are far more heavy and far more relaxed than they normally are, like they just do not want to open, you can stop trying and let yourself know that you're in hypnosis by nodding your head, yes. Good. What we did there is we simply validated the trance state. It's your way of going, okay, I'm in trance. My eyelids feel heavier than normal. I know that if I really wanted to, I could have forced them open. But right now, it just feels like so much more effort than I would want to exert. So if it felt heavier than normal, or if they felt heavier than normal, that's a powerful indication that you are in hypnosis. Now, the truth is, you could force those eyelids open at any time. You could easily shake off the hypnotic state at any time. And how hypnosis works is when you're willing to participate, it works very, very well. Now, in just a moment, Holly, I'm going to bring you back to the room. You will remember this entire experience. You'll come back feeling calm, peaceful, and clear with a full memory of what just happened. I'll count from 1 to 3. When I get to 3, you'll come back to the room, feeling more calm, clear, and peaceful. Your eyes will open, and you'll return to your full and regular waking consciousness. 1, slowly starting to come back now. 2, you can stretch your fingers out, wiggle your hands. 1, 2, and 3. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes, you can stretch, you can move, returning now to your full and regular waking consciousness. Big stretch. You've never experienced hypnosis before, now have you?
Well, every year us hypnotists get together and we hypnotize each other. And with these grand conventions or conferences. So
we love the hypnotic state. We're just like, yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
You did wonderful. What did you notice there?
So you said go to kind of a favorite place. I kind of have a place that I often go to, like that's kind of this tree. There's a little bit of jungle and a tree, and then a little stream or river that goes through it. So that was kind of my favorite place. And I loved all of the like detail that like you can feel, you know, the warmth of the sunshine as it goes down through your body. And there was like wisp of hair. I kind of almost felt it against my cheek. And you know, the sounds. And I think in this one, I did see like colors. Things were colors, but they weren't the colors that you would normally like a tree, you know, brown and green. It was like purple. It was like lights. It was kind of bright, which is kind of unusual. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't always see things that way, but it was very kind of like lit up, like things were Christmas light lit up.
Oh, neat. How interesting. And
Yeah,
did you feel any other signs or sensations that would indicate that you were in hypnosis, that the tingliness, the floatiness, or like the flushing of the face?
Yeah, I felt the tingliness. Just kind of that, you know, it just feels like so relaxed. It felt similar because I have, you know, gone through hypnosis a lot. That it felt familiar, you know, kind of familiar, just very relaxed. A little, just a sense of being in that space, I think.
And did you attempt to open your eyelids when we did the little eyelid
Yeah.
exercise?
Yeah, when you did, it was like, I don't know if I made faces on the video, but I definitely connected with that part, like eyes, you know.
Now, did you feel like you could have forced those eyelids open if you really wanted to, or did it feel like it was just too much resistance?
Well, there's kind of, you know, this we know in hypnosis, if you really don't want to go in, you're not gonna participate. So I had that sense I could open them if I wanted to, but as I tried to open them, they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't open.
Which
That
is
makes sense.
important to know. Yeah. And I wanted to clarify that for the listeners because there are going to be many people who go, okay, I'm pretty sure I could have forced those eyelids open. And the truth is, yes, you can. This is not mind control, and it always requires participation. So it's that willingness to like just play along. If you're truly in hypnosis, it should feel heavy. Your eyelids should feel heavier than normal, and it should feel like, oh, this is going to take some effort to get them open.
Right, right. And I think we have like a lot of, well, there are some different levels of hypnosis, right? So we just did kind of a light state here. Usually on stage shows, they use that repetition stuff to get people to deeper states. But yeah, a lot of the work that we do clinic, you know, working with clients, we can do just almost that. I mean, hypnosis, it can be like imagination and pretending. It's kind of the same spectrum, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So if people had the experience that they couldn't, they had a hard time like opening their eyes, so they felt like, you know, ultimately we know you can open them if you want to, but they felt like, oh, I'm having a hard time opening the eyes or noticing things. How do you gauge as a practitioner how hypnotizable people are with that exercise?
Yeah, first of all, with the Spiegel eye roll test, I'm often looking for that the eyelid flutter. So if we get some of that right away, they're probably very hypnotizable. If I start to see the whites of their eyes pretty quickly, they're probably very hypnotizable.
Oh.
If they're just staring and slowly closing their eyes, and there's not the flutter, there's not the whites of their eyes, they might be a little less hypnotizable, or it's possible they're just a little on guard or a little apprehensive.
Right.
A lot of people can become better at hypnosis with practice.
Right.
I'm to the point now, obviously, I can just, and I'm sure you can do the same, just instant self-hypnosis. And And once you know what hypnosis feels like, and once you know how to induce trance, it can be that quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it certainly feels relaxing. It's so, you have such a soothing voice. It's so nice to, have that guide or that facilitator to just kind of
Yeah,
soothe
thank
your
you.
mind and take you in. Yeah.
I put myself to sleep just listening to myself.
Listening to yourself.
It's a thing, it's a problem.
So I
Yeah,
love that. That's
just,
funny.
just in office, um, falling asleep with the clients, just drifting off right then and there.
Just make sure something beeps when it's time to.
I know,
Yeah,
but I have to catch myself.
love that. So do you actually do like self-hypnosis? Do you take yourself in and give your mind new focuses or
Mhm.
programs?
Yeah, lately I don't do it as much as I should, but there was definitely years and periods of my life when I did it a lot, and it worked very, very well.
Mm.
Anytime I had a new goal or ambition, I would just drop in. I'd affirm it to myself many times over. I'd connect with the feeling associated with the accomplishment of that goal,
Mm.
and it would take me, a minute or two.
Wow.
How
I
about
love
yourself?
that. So you're just kind of giving people some thing that they could work with. I know
Mhm.
like people think about the new year, this is a great time to make changes. And if people maybe even go through that little process that you took me through, that people probably played along with, you could actually take your goals, go into that process, refresh what you want your mind to focus on with your goals, and then come back.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's I believe most hypnotherapists carry the belief that um, hypnotic suggestion is more powerful than affirmations that just come from the very analytical mind. Um,
Right.
I I don't know if you agree with that, but it's that let's take this suggestion deeper. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we do know that when we're in hypnosis, we are experiencing heightened degrees of neuroplasticity. So the brain is more malleable and it's more receptive to new information. And
Mm.
so for
Mm.
those who are like, maybe they practice affirmations at home and they want to take it to the next level, they could learn self-hypnosis, induce trance rapidly, and then offer themselves those same affirmations they're already doing. And it's likely to register in the brain and the body and the subconscious mind much, much more effectively than just a standard affirmation in their regular state of consciousness.
Right. Excellent. So we've got tools for people to practice with now.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this
Mhm.
wisdom and just really, I love that reframe that you had about self-love. What if you've always loved yourself? You just haven't noticed it or relaxed into it. Like that's just so profound, so
So
powerful.
profound. Yes. And thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So where can people connect with more of your YouTube videos? How can they find you? How can they reach
Yeah. Just Google Andrew Green Hypnosis. You'll find my website. Um, you'll find me up on YouTube. I'm now offering a course for people who want to learn digital hypnotism. So they might want to do hypnosis, but perhaps they're not as interested in seeing clients one-on-one in session all day, and they want to have a big impact. They perhaps want to deliver healing messages. So that would be for the compassionate healers out there that want to develop passive income streams and reach a large audience. You can learn more about that on my website. Just again, andrewgreenhypnosis.com.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. And Andrew, I know you see clients live in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, Utah is where you're currently located.
Yes, correct.
Great.
Yep, live. I do Zoom sessions occasionally, but more these days I'm just focusing on this digital hypnotism course and working with the sleep apps that I work with.
Wonderful. Oh, so exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks
Holly.
everybody for being here.
Yeah, such an honor to speak with you, and I appreciate you tons.
You too. Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody out there. We'll see you next
Thanks,
time.
everyone.